Hi everybody, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be showing you how I fit the rubber gym flooring to my new garden room. And for those of you who have been watching from the beginning, I don't think I've previously mentioned that I was going to be using this as a home gym. Obviously, if you're building a similar room yourself, it could be for any other purpose, a home office, an arts and crafts room, maybe a man cave or a bar, or really anything. But for me personally, I really wanted a home gym, so the flooring that I'm using here is specially made flooring that's designed exactly for that purpose. The sheets that you can see me laying down here are 20mm thick. They're made of rubber and they're 1 meter by 1 meter square. They are very easy to fit. In fact, they don't require any gluing in a room this size, so you literally just lay them down and they're kind of friction fit. So you need to push them up tight together, and you can see here that I'm pushing them up to the walls and I'm pushing them together as well. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just going to lay down all the sheets that are going to be in one whole piece. And you can see that I'm staggering. So on this next row here, I've gone from the other side and started. The room itself, the finished size is around 3.7 meters wide by around 2.4 meters in depth there. So there is a gap here that you can't actually see right at the back right hand corner, where I haven't actually put a piece in yet. It's in fact the same as this piece over here on the left. So this is going to be a cut, and essentially I'm laying down all the full pieces first and then I'm adding all the cuts afterwards. So at the minute what I'm doing is I'm just making sure these are as tight as I can get them manually, and then I'm going to cut the other piece a little bit bigger so the pressure from the extra 20mm that I add to this offcut forces all the gaps closed. So this stuff is really easy to cut. You're going to do it basically in the same way that you would cut a piece of plasterboard. So it's a case of just marking where you want the cut to be, and then I just used a piece of chalk here that I kind of sharpened up with a Stanley knife so I could get a nice mark. I did try it with a pencil, but you just couldn't see the marks, so a piece of chalk made the most sense. And then it's just a case of getting your level or some kind of other straight edge and placing that along the marks, and you can just cut it rather easily with a Stanley knife. So one thing I will say is make sure you have a sharp blade. It is quite tough stuff, so with a blunt blade you're just not going to cut through it. So this is a brand new Stanley blade that I've put in for this purpose. And it's just a case of going along the line a couple of times, and as you'll see, once that cut's been made, it actually is very, very easy to just cut that piece out. So we just fold it over, it kind of folds on the cut, and then you just score down the other side exactly as you would do with a piece of plasterboard. And there you go, that's it, cut. Very nice and easy. And we're ready to put that one in place now. So this one here, obviously it's just off camera, so I'm just speeding through this bit. You can see me what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of putting it in and knocking it in place. But the one behind there on the left hand side, you'll actually see me put that in a second now. Okay, so I'm coming in with this one, and you'll actually see here that it is longer or wider even than the gap that it's going into. So when I push it into place, you can see there that it's overlapping. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of bending it into place, and then I'm just applying pressure to push it down. And what that's actually doing, because it is wider than the gap, it's going to push all the other joints in the other squares up tight. It's going to close any gaps up. Obviously, as I've been going as well, I've been sort of pushing them and hitting them into place to get the gaps closed up nice and tight anyway, but this is just going to give them an extra push and add the extra pressure. So unlike, say, laminate flooring, there doesn't need to be any expansion gap with this type of flooring because it's rubber. Obviously there will be movement in it and it will expand and contract, but it's much more flexible than a solid floor, so there doesn't need to be any expansion gaps at all. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the front bit here, which is all cuts. So I'm just measuring one of the sheets there just to get the exact measurement, and there's going to be a little cut around the reveal here where I just need to cut into the rubber flooring just to kind of notch around that corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one piece originally that's just the distance there from the door casing to the next piece of rubber flooring. And then I'll bring that in and I'll mark it up to cut the other piece out. Okay, so here I am with my offcut. And I'm just going to lay that in place where it wants to be. And the camera angle here doesn't really do it a lot of justice, but the overhang there is around 50mm. So I'm just going to mark that with my piece of chalk, just so I know exactly where that cut needs to be. And then I just need to measure the reveal just to get the exact measurement there. And again, it's around 50mm the reveal. And I'm just going to mark that onto the rubber flooring and cut that out. So I'll be cutting it in exactly the same way that I cut the other one. The only difference is on the little cut, the 50mm cut, I went through it a few more times. Obviously I needed to go all the way through that so I could fold the other piece to cut it. Okay, so I'm going to take that back to where I was cutting my original pieces, and I'll just cut that piece out. Okay, so as you can see here, you can see what I've done there and how I've cut it. Just left that little corner there just around the reveal. I've also cut this around 10mm too long. Again, I'm just trying to pressurize all them joints and close them all up. So you can see me bending it into place there to get it right in nice and tight. And then it's just a case of applying pressure. And there we go, that's just secured in place now. Okay, so the next piece is just a normal cut. There's no cutting around anything here. So I'm just going to, I think I've left my tape measure, so I'm going to have to go get my tape measure. Okay, so once I've got my tape measure, I'm just going to measure this. And again, I'm going to try and cut this around 10mm wider. And as you can see here as well, I'm just making sure these are up as tight as I can get them manually. So I'm just giving them a good push before I take the final measurement. Okay, so just going to check this side as well. And check the other side. I don't think there was much of a discrepancy here. It might have been a millimetre or two, but really not much. So I just went with the largest measurement and just added 10mm to that. So this was a really easy cut. Obviously there's no notching around the reveals here, so it's just a case of cutting this one piece just the exact length, the exact width. And again, we're just going to kind of fold it down the middle. They are quite strong, these things as well. They're not the easiest to fold, but I mean, obviously that's going to help them stay in place and be really secure once you've got them in. I can say now as well, when the floor's in, there is no moving this thing. Obviously you could remove them if you really needed to replace a piece of rubber flooring, but in terms of the floor itself having any movement, it really doesn't. It's completely solid. Okay, so I'm just going to push that up until I'm happy with it. All the gaps are closed. And then again, I've gone and forgot my tape measure, so I'm going to need to go grab that again. And just like the first piece on this front here, I'm just going to cut it to the width from the door to the next piece of rubber. Again, I'll check both sides just to make sure. I'll go with the largest measurement. And then I'll mark this again, just like I did with the first one. I'll mark it once I've brought it back in. I'll use a bit of chalk to mark it. Okay, so we'll just lay that in place, make sure it's nice and tight up to the next piece, so that my marks are in exactly the right place. So I'm just going to pull that tight and then just give it a little mark with the chalk here. Then I'm just going to measure that reveal. Again, it's probably around 40-50 that. And just to make sure that I cut the right piece of the rubber flooring here and don't cut the wrong piece out, I'm just going to mark this one while I'm sat here. So I'm just going to put a mark on either side. Okay, so that's this piece now ready to go in. And again, it's about 10mm wider, so it's a nice tight fit. So we're just going to have to fold that in place just to get it in. And then we just got to pat it down into place, just apply a bit of pressure and it'll just pop into place. Make sure all them gaps are as tight as I can get them. So just have a little double check, make sure nothing's opened up. And then we can just move on to the final piece. And the final piece was the most awkward because it was the smallest piece here that I'm measuring in the corner. And also I needed to have it 20mm longer on the length side of it and around 10mm wider on the width side as well, which made it really, really awkward to get this last piece in. But, you know, it's necessary just to get it as tight as we possibly can. Okay, so here we go. And as you'll see here, it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit wider, a little bit fiddly to get in. So it's just a case of kind of manipulating it until it fits into the gap. Yeah, it would definitely be the most difficult piece to get in. But with a little bit of perseverance, there it is. And it just wasn't quite going down as much as I would have liked right on the edges. So I just went off and grabbed myself a bolster chisel just to kind of prod it down on the edges. So you can see here I'm just poking it around the sides just to get everything down at the floor. And that's closed all the gaps up now. Everything's in really tight. The floor is completely solid at this point. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. First time I've ever put this kind of flooring down. And personally, I think I did a pretty good job. So you can see here, this is the finished job. Nice and tight. All the corners are tight. No gaps around the walls. No gaps between the flooring itself. You know, it's all pushed up nice and tight. And I think it gives a really nice finish to the room, especially as it's going to be used as a gym. It looks like gym flooring. I mean, it is gym flooring, but it's definitely got the look that I was hoping for. So I'm very happy with it. And obviously, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are installing this floor yourself, I hope it was helpful. And I will see you in the next video.